Thank you for joining us for another insightful episode of Creatives Chat After Show Convo, featuring Dawn Spiegelberg. Join us as we chat about who knows what and why it matters. Our show shall begin now. Streaming from Retro Earth Studio and brought to you by wearehistorically.com, Conscious Brand Apparel, and
Learn to play jazz piano like a pro, by a pro, with Jazz Piano Pro Essentials at jazzpianopro.com.
everybody, meet Dawn.
Mm-hmm. Well, what is alignment to you in the sense of self-mastery, especially in that perspective of nature?
Many alignments. So for me, there is an optimal physical alignment. And what's happening now, because everybody's on Zoom and their head is forward and their shoulders, right? There's the hunch. Yeah, you got it. That is not optimal alignment. What's amazing about that alignment is that rather than energy coming through our seventh chakra, we end up with our head forward and energy comes through the top of our thoracic spine. And that's not where it's designed to come in. And so what does that mean? Right? Then that's weight on our shoulders. We feel responsible. Things are too heavy. We feel burdened, and that's not designed. So I take alignment very seriously, and I look at physical alignment, because physical alignment tells me what's happening with someone spiritually.
100%. 100%. Mm-hmm. That's very true. And it's that sense of, closing off the shoulders. Yeah. It's that aspect of having confidence and loving yourself and radiating that shine. And
confidence right here. Confidence is right here on the front of the shoulders. Yeah.
And there's no vulnerability when you, I see it as when you have no shame, but it's one of those things when you're just really embraced in the now and having fun and really just radiating that love. It's like, there's nothing to suppress you. There's nothing to hold you back.
Yeah.
And it's very fascinating just how everything in this world that we're in, I had a new client starting up last week or the other weekend. It was the concept of everything in his life was always forward.
Yeah.
Forward, from typing to driving to riding the bike, and everything was just closing off the shoulders. And then it cascaded into so many different problems. And there was this moment of being uncomfortable when the posture was realigned. And the head wanted the chin and head wanted to drop, but it was just like, no. Yes. And the question came up is, after hearing, well, this feels weird. I was like, well, what about it feels weird?
Mm-hmm.
And it was so much more of an emotional kind of mind thing than it was really a physical thing. Mm-hmm. It wasn't super uncomfortable. It was just more so, it just feels like I'm out there. And it was just like, it was such a weird, loose statement that I was just like, let's look into that. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So the mental map that we keep of ourselves, where we are in space, is something inside our brain. And when we change that mental map, it changes our perception of us, who we are, how we present ourselves in space. And it directly affects our ability to continue the path of self-mastery or be stalled on that path. It's amazing.
Yeah. And again, everything is connected. There's not one aspect of life that supersedes the other. But it's all built on a foundation of love. That's the one thing that, just lie in the grass, ground yourself. And what you were saying earlier, because, we had some Lord of the Rings drops in the previous episode, so watch those if you haven't. But it was I really want to express it because it was so beautiful stated in the sense of when we were talking in the green room about it, but it was just Gandalf falling.
Yeah.
So why don't you expand upon that for the listeners a little bit?
The Gandalf falling?
Yeah.
So there's a scene in Lord of the Rings where Gandalf is on the bridge and somehow the Balrog is awakened, and then the Balrog starts to fall, but then his whip grabs Gandalf's ankle. And Gandalf realizes that's the end. And so he tells everyone, the rest of the company, to run. Don't stand around watching, run. And he falls. And in the falling, when life is tough, when something happens, and my personal experience to this is I'm in my car and either there's ice or snow or rain, and I no longer have control, and the car is going where it's going. No amount of turning the steering wheel or hitting the brake is going to change the trajectory I'm on. In that moment of being propelled or falling, am I able to let go of expectation? Can I relax and accept the fact that this is happening? And I see in the world where so many diseases are prevalent, and I believe disease starts here in the environment. 100%. And it gets turned on by the environment, right? This environment influences this environment, which in turn creates this environment. And I see people releasing or letting go at a moment when it's beyond what they believe is possible. So in an example of a knee where someone gets the news from their doctor, oh, it's bone on bone, we should replace it. Right? In that moment, there is a falling. And it takes a lot to get a joint to the point that it's bone on bone. Right? If you think about it, there's bone and then there's cartilage, right? And then there's supposed to be some space in there with synovial fluid. Yeah. And if they've been rubbing, right, constantly, if you rub your own palms together, what do you feel first? Heat. Yeah. Doctors call that inflammation. It's heat, yeah. Right? So joints aren't designed to wear out. So here I am, and it's getting hotter, and it's getting hotter, and now it starts to hurt. And if I don't stop rubbing, what's going to happen? I rub my skin off, and then I rub the tendons off, and then I rub the muscles, and then I'm down to bone on bone. And that's where people are finding themselves. They are rubbing their joints so much, and they're not willing at the first sign of a discomfort, at the first sign that something's not right, they're not willing to release and let go and seek help and to find out the source of the inflammation. They will live with that inflammation until the doctor says, you got to get it replaced.
That's so true. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. And sacrifice and at the expense of everything else in the body, because then the imbalances arise. And I mean, it's a cascading issue when there's one group that's out in terms of the bodily alignment, and then everything is just that ripple effect. So
yes. And so I want to encourage everyone, you don't have to wait until it's bone on bone. You can get help sooner. You can be willing to make a change. See what happens. People are resistant to change. They're the wall, right? Yeah. And all it takes is a slight change, and then your joints can be whole, healthy, and complete. If we were designed to wear out, which a lot of people say, oh, I'm in my 50s or my 60s, and my knee's going to wear out. My doctor said, just call me when you're ready for the surgery. If we were designed to wear out, we would have worn out by the time we were 10 years old, because everybody's seen kids jump and run and jump and bounce, and right? We would have already worn out if we were designed to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, even then, like the cellular process for death doesn't really fully kick in until like 80. And even then, you can prolong that as long. I mean, again, it just comes back to that point of perception is everything, because it's that mind over matter component. Because even in the placebo effect, why some people will literally, manifest their own ailment or their own cure.
Yes.
Like that's the thing that most people forget with the placebo effect, is where it works both ways. You know, if you're constantly focusing on being sick, oh, I'm sick, feeling sad and, you know, pitiful for yourself, your body's going to accept that frequency that you're emitting from itself. It's radiating that, oh, I'm sick, I'm wounded, I'm hurt. But if you just go, I mean, I'll put it this way. So one of the things that I do, and I have to really try to think about this because I haven't been sick in literally like years. It's been at least maybe like 5 years since I've been like, oh, sick. But the moment it happens, I just go, well, I'm not sick. This isn't happening. And then if I feel like it was really bad, I'd be like, body, get rid of this and demand it from the vessel, you know, and that's the ethereal aspect of, you know, the body is fluid, where it's you can will it to be whatever you seek. And that's the true potential of this human experience, is that we do transcend and are the living example of mind over matter.
Yeah. So, Peter, I'd love for you to speak about that a little more and share with everyone, okay, the difference between what you just described, which is body, get rid of this, or I'm not sick, and dealing with the reality. These are the facts. You're sick. You've got a sore throat. You're sneezy and sniffly.
Well, I think it comes back to that concept of I'm going to treat my body as a temple. You know, so just as much as I'm going to give those affirmations and, you know, chant my mantras of I'm not sick, like I'm, you know, sitting in, you know, a little monastery, I'm also not going to go around and, you know, throw manure everywhere. I'm going to be like, okay, so my body is at this point of vulnerability. Let's fuel it with what it needs. Let's have some fruit. Let's just eat a salad, you know, let's flush it with a lot of fresh water. Let's pray to the water. You know, there's so many different aspects of, you know, even just being in the sun. Let's make sure that I have enough, you know, skin light exposure to the UV rays, or if I'm taking a vitamin D supplement, it's that moment of not resisting the resistance of being like, oh, well, my body's trying to tell me something. That means it needs something. You know, so just as much as I'm like, hey, you know, like the horse and the rider, you know, although I am the rider on the horse, I'm still well aware that the horse needs water. I'm still well aware that the horse needs food. So in that sense, it's just taking care of it. You know, I have some feedback and I know my immune system is having some reaction to fighting something, which is why I observe it. So what am I going to do? Let's give it some extra juice to fight and fuel up.
Yeah, I love the way you mentioned that and described what you're doing to help your body. So you're not neglecting.
Yeah, no, it's addressing it.
Yes.
100%. Well, it's the same thing. Don't resist the resistance. I'm not meeting with a wall being like, no. It's okay, well, how can I use this to really take flight? And then from there, it'd be like, oh, sore throat for a day, nothing tomorrow, or nothing the next day. And it's like waking up being like, oh, both nostrils. Oh, I'm so grateful to breathe through both nostrils.
Yes.
It's funny, you know, but this aspect, I really do like, and I want to bring it full circle in the sense of the seed, you know, because I found that it was such a beautiful point of we never know what life is going to provide us down the line. We never know what we're going to fully become. But the only way we do know for certain what we are and continue to develop that is by embracing growth, you know, giving ourselves the opportunity to grow. And that's what, you know, I like self-mastery in nature. So many lessons.
So many. So the trees grow. All of nature is about more growth. The water flows. It still rains. And the water is willing to be evaporated. What kind of a transition is that? Evaporation? And then it's willing to be collected again and then to fall and crash to the earth. Who's willing to do that? And then it gets absorbed into the ground. We don't see it anymore. And then it flows and it collects again and flows into the river. That is an amazing transformation. Water is the epitome of self-mastery right there. It can be frozen and it doesn't complain. It doesn't question it. It just does. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's where I like to just always point everyone towards. And I've always found that nature has always been my greatest teacher of just the subtleties that it reveals, and, just the different applicable lessons that you can apply to it, simply focusing on increasing concentration or stillness by just listening to the wind, listening to the song of the trees swaying in the breeze. And that water one takes it to a whole nother level. I like that.
Yeah, a homeopathic friend of mine recently was talking with me about attention. And he concluded, and I had heard this before, he concluded that attention and focusing on something is actually loving it. When you give your attention to something, you are loving that object, whatever it is. Yeah. And so our little phrase, where your attention goes, energy flows, feeling grows, and the heart knows, you can see if you're giving your attention to your phone, you're loving this.
Yeah.
And if you're on this and your son comes over and asks you a question, can you stop this to look them in the eye, to answer their question? So what are we teaching youngsters anymore? Because our attention is constantly on other things.
As if human worthlessness and sense of, self-worthlessness isn't already intense as it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so I recommend people pay attention to where they're putting their focus.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Oh yeah. Well, it validates and even adds even more weight, because I've loosely been saying it for years now. Where's your affection of attention going?
Oh yeah.
And that alone, I mean, I love alliteration, but it's that's that like it really is that in which we find satisfaction and enjoyment from. That's all life is. And I find that that's the path of self-mastery, is when you fall in love with your own growth and development, and you fall in love with learning again. It completely changes what a lot of people have the misconception of what educational learning is. And hopefully, we'll live in a day and manifest it, really just rebuild it, of what the education system can be, from memorization to really learning what your heart tells you to really following your passions. Because the one thing that is going to be the saving grace so those 25% of seeds can survive is curiosity. And that's learning. That's a childhood thing, though, that just, it gets washed out of us, or squeezed, or forced, or however you want to think about it. It gets removed from us forcibly. But when we keep that childlike curiosity for everything, and especially ourselves, life opens up on so many different avenues. It truly is, curiosity is. And we're even taught like weird sayings like curiosity killed the cat, or it's just like, no, right? Like curiosity is what makes us who we are.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I just realized that.
I'm curious, Peter. What kinds of self-mastery paths are you on? Share. What are you cooking up in there?
Currently, it's awakening into more of my powers. And I'm going to leave that somewhat open for the listener's imagination. But one thing that I could easily say is fully aligning with the higher self and manifestation. I think there's been I know there's been some powerful happenings lately that life will always validate the questions that I've been seeking out internally, where a different opportunity will happen. Even in my own practice, I've been convening with, my ancestors, my guardians, my teachers, my, the angels, however you like to see it or state, their existence. But I think one of the biggest ways, and I've mentioned it a few times loosely on the show, but you asked the question so we can open it up a little bit more. I've been doing a lot of dream work. Like in my nighttime meditation, I'll really just tap into the self. And, for those that have been on the show or listening to the show for a while know that I do Qigong. I practice my own energy work and kind of have my own little nighttime routine of really gazing into a flame, gazing into a candle and allowing everything just to flow effortlessly and just kind of, I don't want to say manipulate the fire, but to really flow like the fire effortlessly burns. And as I conclude that night, it's always kind of setting an intention of something I want to continue to learn or experience that I didn't get a chance to in the waking state. And it's been very, I say like wild, like I say, I don't say that loosely or lightly, where it's been absolutely wild, the dreams in which I've received and just how nail on the head applicable they are to things that I want to learn. And lately, this past week and a half or 2 weeks now, I've been requesting things that I may not be aware of. And it was so fascinating. Like I had this dream last night where, there's multiple segments of the dream, but the one that really stood out to me that was just so different compared to normal was there was this giant wave and myself and others were on it. And it was to the point where we were at the crest and the peak of the wave where any lean forward, you're falling like hundreds, thousands of feet down. And there was previous experiences of something similar to this where it would be a panic would come up and the falling would begin. And then it would be the moment I hit the ground, it's like I wake up and I'm out of breath and my heart's racing. And this time it was just like, okay, well, let's ride the wave then. And it was just like being on the ocean where it's, a big wave comes and you're in a boat and you just go over it and just come back down and then it just mellows out. And that happened in the dream. And once I kind of, sailed on it into shore, I remember like landing on the sand and kind of walking and skipping and be like, that was fun. And then I woke up and like, I just woke up with such like excitement, but incredibly relaxed and was just like, huh. So yeah, in terms of really revealing things to yourself, there's so much work that we can do in dream. And when we ask for assistance from, the spirit side, the spiritual realm, whatever it is you want to think about it, you don't even need to think about it in the sense of, the afterlife or anything. It's just the fact that the universe is numerous dimensions, compressed into, it's all living in the same sphere. It's all just varying in different frequency and vibration. And again, people that think this is woo, look this up. We know this, like physicists have figured this out, that we know there's at least 11, like that's something that like, it just goes under the radar of human existence, but that's a profound statement of just that validates so many different religions and philosophies that have been teaching this information for generations. And so I tap in with my higher self. And for those that don't know, your higher self is essentially your pure spirit, your pure soul that is so infinite and eternal. You operate on multiple different planes at once. You just aren't aware of it. So I've been tapping into that energy, the Christ energy within each being that we all have the potential of. And that really just means, in terms of Christ energy, it has nothing to do with Jesus. It's the sense of oneness. It's the sense of, your ability of transformation, your union with life and all that is. It's this concept of ever growing and raising your vibration. So yeah, it's been fun. Like the dream stuff has been really, really interesting because there's been things that, again, like I've thought that I might have processed fully, but there was just a little remnants of it still there. So my dream would be in this ridiculous dreamscape scenario, but it would always be focusing on that lesson and how I've met each challenges. And I've mentioned this previously to some people, but like I'm not lucid to the sense where I'm manipulating the dream. But I'm lucid enough to be aware of this is an outlandish situation. Clearly I'm dreaming, but still participating in it and whatever it's presenting me. And I almost think of it kind of like a video game quest where it's something would happen. I would respond in a way that either revealed something that was still caught up or I overcame something. But regardless, the moment upon waking is always just this refreshing lesson and feeling of liberation. Like I would feel lighter every time. So every day has just been more of this ethereal dance where it's just like, oh wow, I really let go of something. Wow, I don't like that. I'm not going to do that anymore. So it's just been this, and that's the thing about growth is you never know what you need to grow from. But when you embrace the journey of like, all right, whatever you want to send me, universe, I'm ready. Let's go. I commit to this and dedicate myself to this process of letting go of everything. And It's been really fun. It's been definitely an interesting dance.
I was reading an author, I don't recall who the author is, but he was convinced that we're all called to be Christ. We're all called to live in such a way that we attain affinity with God or spirit, our higher self, and walk the path in that state.
100%. And
you just described it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the funny thing about the human condition is that we naturally, because of that childhood learning that you were mentioning earlier, where it's like, from 0 to 7, we're soaking up all this stuff. We're looking to the people to learn how to be a person, that we forget that we're each unique aspects of the one. There is only one Dawn. There's only one Peter, and that's the misconception that a lot of people have. Having role models and someone to aspire to is always necessary in a sense where it's like, okay, well, they're doing what I want to do, but how are you applying it to yourself? How are you really trying to bring out your unique gift? Because there's the way I look at it is, every being, every set of eyes is but a window of the same awareness that's flowing through everything. And we have to fully recognize, well, what is our window? What is our gift to this universe of experience? Because we only learn through self-expression. So we have to fully express ourselves. But that's the kind of the paradoxical problem, is that we have to eliminate everything we're not first. So it's that squeezing out of the sponge, letting it dry out a little bit, and then being like, oh, that's what we really look like. Okay, well, I can still paint with this. I can still do whatever with this. And that's when I find people get into the sense of being able to play again, is when you really allow yourself to embrace who you are and the pureness of it, addressing, fully committing to the search, fully humbling yourself each day, knowing that like you don't know everything, you're still learning. Be grateful for all grace in which you receive, and life becomes so dope. I just like, it's so hard to express into words how fun this experience is, but I don't think people recognize that the only way you can get to this point is by really, I mean, I say it lightly, but I fully mean it. Let go of everything. Hold on to nothing, and life will fill up your cup, and it'll overflow with, but
there's a preacher in California who talks about what you're describing, and he says, life is so amazing. And he says it just like that, amazing. When you live in this way, when you live in the Fibonacci flow, when you're living your purpose and allowing the energy to grow you. And that's what I hear you saying. You're willing to let the energy flow through you, and that's how you're attaining self-mastery.
Yeah, and the biggest point too is always recognizing you're never there. Like the concept of people making it or being like, I'm an awakened one, is such BS. It's such it's a spiritual cul-de-sac, and ultimately I see it stemming from spiritual material, or what I call spiritual materialism, where you're conceptualizing. You're thinking that awakening and self-mastery is this concept where it's like, oh, I did it, I achieved it, and there's nothing else for me now. It's like, no, like when you really tap in, you understand that we're infinite.
Yes.
Like, and that can be overwhelming if you don't embrace it and have fun with it.
Yeah.
Because there's, again, like, we're eternal beings. We've been doing this for a long time, but our memory has gotten forcibly wiped, but it's also willingly wiped, because you can't really embrace the lessons you need to learn. You can't really explore this life freely until you learn to value what we are. And that's what I found, this, that same hero's journey aspect of, we're all going through a hero's journey whether we like it or not. We've always been on it. And it's sad when I see people getting caught up with their purpose, because I see a lot of people, especially my age, getting caught up with their purpose, with how forced they're shut into this, educational journey where it's, I'm going to get my master's, I'm going to get my PhD, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this, and then I'm going to do this as my career, and then I'm going to do this. And, I have a lot of friends in my own life that still don't have meaning with any of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately they never ask themselves the most important question as I see it, which is, who am I?
Yes.
So that's where I've been very fortunate and graced, despite having a lot of chaos and wild stuff go on. That's the question that I really dedicated myself to, because through that, everything else has flowed. It's like a waterfall. The purpose is downstream, but the iceberg's melting it. Is that who am I? That's what's making the reservoir lake that's flowing down to the rest of the valley. Yeah.
Beautiful. So you've definitely been able to quiet your mind, and people who are saying, "Oh, I'm here, I'm woke, and I've made it." That's this talking, right? That's not the cycle of living by heart and hearing the knowing that's supposed to inform here. That's here is driving the bus. It's got the steering wheel.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, because the heart, ask anybody, have you ever loved too much?
Right.
That's just like a physical thing you can think of. Have you ever had a love so much that it literally killed you? No. Your heart can shine. You can be cheesing ear to ear. You may love so much to the point where your cheeks hurt from smiling. Where you know what I mean? But you as a mother, especially like the love for a child, the love for the love for the family, there's nothing that can actually cap love. Mm-hmm. That's why it's more accurate to understand ourselves as love itself. Mm-hmm. As it is the closest thing we can get in this physical realm of knowing limitlessness, of knowing infinity. Mm-hmm. It's that unconditional love, but that's why we're here, really.
I really see the lessons of unconditional love as a parent. Mm. And I experienced it as a child, feeling it from my parents. But when it comes around to being a parent and expressing it, it's a whole nother ball game. But now I see why the Bible is constantly calling God the Father. Mm. I see why they talk about this unconditional love that knows no end, because it's something that can be experienced in our own humanity. Mm. And it's this cycle of being born, living, having a family, and dying. Mm. That is yet another aspect of nature that informs us and our divine purpose, our divine path.
100%. Then there's nothing more humbling than questioning our mortality.
Oh, yeah.
Knowing that the temporary is all there really is, change is inevitable, and the world's not going to stop spinning, where it's just being grateful. And I find that that's always one thing that people, because in my youth, I went through a stint of suicidal, tendency and ideation. And I was actually going to do it. And if it wasn't for the love of my dog, I wouldn't be here today. And when I questioned that, and he jumped up on my lap out of a deep sleep, it was like the moment I was about to get up off the couch and go pop the pills and, chug the handle I had, it was just such wow, I was so selfish, where it's just I didn't even think about despite not knowing that anything else, in that childlike mindset of just the victim of no one loves me, no one this, that dog did. And I was rest in peace, Strider. That was one of my teachers, where it was just he taught me that is love, that he was going to love me no matter what, no matter all the other people and craziness that was going on in my life, my own stupid choices. It brought me to that point where it really made me question. I was just wow, I'd be leaving him, and he clearly wants me here. And it was just such a moment where I was just well, no more of that nonsense, because then it made me question everything else. Like, okay, well, he was going to miss me. Who else would?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. This is really selfish of me. Wow. And then it was just a really humbling experience. Just kind of hung out with him for a little bit. But it was it's the sense of, that's one of the things that I always kind of question within my own beingness, where I'm just like, and it doesn't need to be for sad stuff either. It's for anything. It's like if there's anger, if there's frustration, if there's fear, if like, especially for fear, I always question, like, would I be okay going out knowing I didn't do this? Would I be okay going out and like carrying on with this burden or this pain or not expressing myself, whatever it is? No. So it's like life presents us all these different lessons, and like a similar experience of nature providing that lesson. Where it's death's constant, and if we don't learn from it, what are we doing?
Thank you so much for sharing that story. I
Yeah.
don't think people talk about that enough.
Well,
right?
I've come to understand it's so common, but it's, again, oh, well, that's bad. It's a facet of life.
Yeah.
I don't personally, I only find that people get to that point because their gears are really, really turning. Ultimately, it's not saying that everyone has to, no one that's suicidal or has gone through a suicidal moment in their or phase in their life, they don't get it. But it's one of those things that you get there because you're really questioning things. You're just not perceiving it in a loving light.
Yes.
That's the only difference. And that's the switch and the hang up that we could really help people get away from that path of actually following through with it. Because for me, like, the reason why I was going to choose alcohol and pills was because I'm a wimp. There's no way I could cut myself or shoot myself. Like, I was like, oh, let me just take a nap. Like, I'll do that. But, it takes so much courage to actually commit yourself to that act. And that's one of the reasons why it's so sad for me, especially I heard from a friend, his brothers are growing up. They're like almost 10 years younger than us. They're growing up in the same school system that we both went through. And their suicide rate in middle school and early high school is just outrageous. Like dozens per year. And for me, it's just like, how many courageous souls we lost that had a lot of potential to really transform. Because if you have the courage to do that, like you have the strength to do things that you're not even aware of.
Right.
And that's the sadness that I see when we don't value a path of self-mastery, when we don't value people of being their unique self. And, I do see things changing, but I think the only way we can really change the environment and the society is really having like open discussions about this stuff and the lessons that we've learned. It's incredibly powerful stuff. Like I always see examples of this all the time. They're really popular on the internet, where it's like a man was going to commit suicide and someone saved him. And then years down the line, that same person that got saved ended up saving the person that saved them, or like some random things like that, or people who go under these amazing acts of selflessness, like staying with an infant for like 48 hours, helping them breathe, with the little pump, getting saved by that same person who was a busser at a restaurant, giving him the Heimlich. Like, there's so many different connections like that with life that, we really do see things get snubbed out because they choose, to sacrifice themselves for, ultimately illusory things. Getting caught up in the dread and sadness of the world rather than recognizing your unique light that's meant to change it. And one of the biggest points I really want people to take from this is that the brightest lights always go to the darkest corners. That's just how it goes, and that's one of the reasons why we signed up for it. But we have to be able to handle the challenges that we chose to partake in this world. And if we don't, it's not only yourself that's missing out, it's everyone else.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, I'm super happy I'm here. I've saved multiple people. Like, it's been cool. But it's also one of those things that I never forget. And I have so much sympathy for people that deal with, mental health issues and depression and all these concepts. But I hope to be a living example where it's like, again, you talked about the marriage aspect of like looking and seeing the valley and the mountains and all the things going on, where it's like, yeah, I'm very grateful for the mistakes and things I've done in my youth, because they led me to this point of realization, and I was fortunate in, graced enough with my own unique curiosity to not get caught sinking and to always keep fighting. And, and I'm just grateful that, life sent me my dog, because he was the one being who was there for me in my moment of vulnerability where I could have made a huge mistake. But, I've seen the impacts that I've had on multiple people and continue to make. And it's just, I wouldn't give it up for anything, despite all the adversity and things like that. And, the path of self-mastery isn't really like a one that's going to be met with love and hugs and kisses like all the time.
Yeah.
But when you get to a point where, you finally let go of enough of the pain and transformed it into your power, there's nothing that can stop you. And you're just that, what is it, the albatross that just like flies for like 3 days, 4 days straight, like a week or 2 weeks straight.
Yes.
Yeah, you just coast, and life just becomes this beautiful dance where you can just play and have fun. And really, it's like you're living like a kid again, except you pay bills and
yeah, all the benefits of the Fibonacci frequency.
Yeah, and you're an adult, so you can experience more of the world. You're not confined to people like holding you on their shoulders, or
yeah,
it's a beautiful journey, and there's a lot more people waking up nowadays. So I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
Super excited about that.
Self-mastery is key.
Unless you want to enjoy the roller coaster of personhood. I mean, there
That's
are some people who love that, but I'd say the path of the quickest path to fun is self-mastery. Let it go.
Yeah, everyone is on the path of their choice.
Yeah.
So they're getting to self-mastery in the way they see fit.
That's a huge lesson I've had to learn. Free will is a thing. You can't help someone if they don't want to be helped.
Yeah.
That's a tough one to handle for those on the path of self-mastery. I will say that.
Yeah, and that's the moment we're called to compassion. That's the moment when being filled with love, so much so that it flows out into other people, that's what makes it bearable. Because we see through the eyes of God, we see clearly without assigning meaning. The Buddha talked about being able to see the karmic existence of other individuals. Man, that's a mind blower, right? And when asked about so-and-so who was, I've forgotten which, one of his disciples was killed murderously, horribly or something. And the Buddha said that was his karma playing out. Like,
just
cleanse your karma quick right now.
So that right there is a powerful one, because I've found that, and again, this is, experientially, this is nothing against any religions or anything, but because of the influence of man, there has been a lot of things that have gotten misconstrued as I see it. And one of the biggest ones about that is judgment, karma, your own hell or heaven. I find that, even just for me, even seeing God as either sex, I know some people that call it the father. I know some people that refer to the mother, but in truth, it's the union. Yes. We're all created in the image. Mm-hmm. This is why I like to I use source. I find it's the easiest thing that just like speaks to my heart. But everyone's always free to choose anything they want. But in this sense, the unification of source, the knowing of source, is unconditional love. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know any unconditional love that judges you. I don't know any unconditional love that punishes you for making a mistake. I don't, you know what I mean? Exactly. I don't know any type of unconditional love that's going to, hold you in this pedestal or throw you in a dungeon. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things why, I heard this powerful statement ages ago, and it was someone who had, after like a death experience, who literally died, had their own talks with those on the other side, came back, has had other, ET conversations with celestial beings. And it was this concept of, oh yeah, we don't get judged by anyone, when we go. We judge ourselves. 100%, 100% judge ourselves. And it's just like, oh.
Do you know why? I figured it out.
Oh yeah, I'm curious.
Can I tell you what?
Yeah.
So when we're dying, okay, our brain begins to die. And what happens when neurons die? They fire one last time. So as you die, as your brain is firing off these neurons, you yourself are seeing again your life. Those memories that are held in there, those cells are dying. So you're seeing flashes of all these cells dying, which are the memories. And so your internal dialogue about your own life is what determines how it's judged. It's you judging yourself because your brain is dying.
Yeah. And it's funny when you think about it too, in the sense of the energetic, because, matter cannot be destroyed. It's just transformed. It's that energetic release. The neuron that's containing all that information gets, boom, everything essentially gets uploaded to the cloud, so to speak, make a modern day reference. But it's that aspect of, and I'll bring it back to love, where it's when we do kind of judge ourselves, it's that sense of how you see things are supposed to be. Your perception plays a huge role from the understanding and things that I've looked into this in terms of what your end game is beyond the white light. Yeah. And it's the statement of, when did you withhold love and when did you give it? And that's one of the biggest keys that's going to be a factor in, the lessons that we have to learn coming back around is when did we withhold love from ourselves? When did we withhold love from others? When did we simply not give enough love to ourselves or others? I mean, again, it comes back to that component. No matter how you want to look at it from that spectrum, it's all about love. And to me, that's resonated so deeply that I had to do a few searches into it and taps into, try to get a few downloads on it. And the one thing that has always echoed through in every type of introspection looking into that is all we are is love. And it's the love of whatever we seek to kind of point our loving light of consciousness towards that we're going to receive. And there's no greater direction than pointing it inwards, because then it just expands even greater. And it's to always keep it pointing inwards. And that's how one can stay grounded in all of this process, because I feel that's one thing I got caught up in my youth as well, is ascension without grounding. It's just floating up in space, you're disconnected from things, versus pointing it inwards, which naturally just points, everything coming back up, down, down, back up. And it's all love. It sounds so cheesy. It really does sound so cheesy, but there's so many different manifestations and expressions of love that I've learned, not always hugs and kisses lessons, but love is key to everything. And that to me is the Christ energy. That to me is, because again, it's just living love fully manifested, if that makes sense.
Yes, the Beatles were right. All you need is love. And if at your final stage, when you're dying and your brain is firing off all those lifetime of memories, you perceive it all with only love. How beautiful is that?
Probably pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, that's why neutrality is so important. I think neutrality is important. Don't assign meaning to things. Just hold everything in the image of love. Hold everything reflecting love.
Yeah, I see that. And that's one of the issues that I've had with, because I learned it from the kind of Vedic approach of indifference is a word that's always frequently used in the Vedic text. And I never really, I got it. It made the most sense to me until I really discovered what real love is. And then for me, it was just love. I don't know. I think that's one of my mantras now, where it's just I am love. I use that pretty frequently, because love is applicable to any situation. You can have fierce love, where it's you need to be that lion, for the example of the mother, where it's you have to be that lioness to protect your cub.
Yeah.
There is the selfless love where you have to let people be. There's the open love where you just have to hold space. You don't need to do anything. There's the assertive love where you need to take action. There's the fully self-loving, and sometimes you need to let go. And that there's so many, again, like one could ponder on love and write like a multiple series of books, and just each expression of love could be its own novel. But when we think about the light spectrum, I think that's probably the easiest way to express it is love is the white light.
The white light. Yeah.
And then everything else just can be prismed or, blow off into that. It's just light in general. Yeah. I mean, we are in a matrix of light, right? So it makes sense that it is love. I mean, that's how at least I see it.
You're reminding me that at the time of my father's death, which was about 8 years ago, there was nothing I was taught in my religious upbringing, which was a Protestant religion. And then I studied Buddhism later. There was nothing in either of those religions that was information that I could use to guide my father in the death process. Like, I don't know if any religion has that. I don't know if any book guides people in preparing for their death in the moment when your spirit relinquishes the body, right? When you let go. And our conversation about the neurons firing and being full of love as you view your life passing before your eyes, which that would be the image, right? Your life passing before your eyes. And that's a curriculum we should develop.
Yeah, that's super powerful. That's incredibly powerful.
How to prepare people for death.
Yeah. That understanding of, letting go and making amends and accepting. I mean, the way I can the words that really echo to me, even just you saying it, is acceptance. Fully embracing the now. Fully loving every aspect of your experience. Yeah. That's a very interesting. I like that. That's a great idea.
Right. And it makes me think of Christ. Whether or not he existed and he was what he claimed to be, or what everyone else claimed him to be, right? It's interesting. He never said, I'm the Son of God. He always referred to himself as the Son of Man. Isn't that fascinating? Anyway, he died. And then there was a period of time. There was that 3-day period of time. And I didn't realize this until this past Easter when I was rereading the story. Like, I've heard the story, I've read the story. I didn't recognize this. At the moment when 2 women were going to the tomb, what happened? There was an earthquake, and there was an angel, and the angel rolled the stone. And what did the angel say? He's not here. So my conception, my little kid brain, all these years, thought that the angel rolled the stone and he walked out. Because that's what I understood was possible. That's not what happened. He wasn't there.
No.
He wasn't in the tomb.
Yeah, they just opened it to show him.
Yes. So he was gone. So if we go back to our concept of him dying and his life passing before him, then what happened? Then he somehow filled himself with so much love that he reanimated his own physical form. Now, if you recall, there are moments when he presents himself to his disciples, to the apostles, and they don't recognize him. And how does he convince them that he's the Christ? He shows them the holes. And then they recognize him.
Yeah.
So he reanimates. I'm going to use the word reanimate because That's the best word I can think of. He reanimates the body that was destroyed. How did he do that?
Because love transcends all. And
Yes.
that's the beautiful aspect of that.
And we started our conversation by talking about the atoms.
Yeah.
What's more of the atom than the particles? The energy.
Yeah, 100%.
So there it is.
Your own will and love. I would say it has to be your will and love, because the love has to be directed.
Yes, where attention goes,
Yeah.
energy flows, feelings grow, and the heart knows.
Facts. That's great.
There's a verse that says what Christ did in those 3 days. Do you know it?
Mm-mm. I mean,
I think it's 1 Peter
probably got
3.
memory hold.
Yeah. 1 Peter 3. So you'll remember that because your name is.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It says that during that 3 days, Christ went to the spirits from Noah's day. And it says something about from the time of Noah while God was waiting. So Noah took, I think, 120 years to build the ark. And the whole time he was preaching and the people did not turn. The people did not repent. They were just like, rain, boat, what are you talking about? And they all died. And when Christ died, he somehow was given access to that spirit world, and he was preaching to those spirits who died at the time of Noah. What is that about?
Forgiveness.
What about all the
second
spirits
chance
from Noah to now, or when Christ was alive, right? Like, what's significant about that point in time? And where are those spirits?
I mean, that's when you can get into deep woo, because that's almost like there was that. I mean, we know now that the great cataclysm actually did arise. We know this. You know, you can look at all the different core samples. You can look at the past and, the graphs of the sun and how everything happened. But I could easily see that being what a lot of us are here for now, is avoiding a second type of cataclysm. In terms of the Atlantean age ending and this one beginning, where, we were so much more spiritually tapped in back in the day of, these ancient sites getting built, from Göbekli Tepe to all the different areas in South America to Egypt, that they had consciousness understanding, they had spiritual understanding, but they lacked, the kind of development of love where it turned into something chaotic and destructive. So it could easily be that same aspect of, like the three gunas. You have dullness, passion, and goodness. I could easily see that culture being caught up in goodness, of self-righteousness and spiritual materialism, where it's just, and there's nothing more terrifying than those that think they know everything because they're not willing to learn anything. And so I see that being the path of destruction that is cataclysmic, in and of itself, for our own development in life. So maybe, I don't know. That's an interesting take. What's your theories on that? Why that group?
I don't know yet. I'm just looking into it now.
That's wild.
I'm just putting my feelers out. I'm trying to understand, what does it mean in the spirit world? What's that word spirit? Is it the word pneuma that it appears in other places in the New Testament? So, but it's fascinating to me. Christ died, and what did he do? He went and preached to spirits.
Yeah. Tried to guide them back to source.
Exactly. Which means they had been disconnected for a long time.
Yeah. Which adds even more weight to the self-righteousness aspect, because that would be the separation from your own divinity.
Yes. There it is.
Oh, Dawn, thank you so much for joining us again with the after show. Any last parting words for the listeners?
I don't know. We touched on it all.
I love it.
Right? You were so generous in sharing your experience, and people lose hope. They lose sight of the vision.
Yeah.
And it's important, I believe it's important for them to understand that there is a purpose in their life.
Yeah.
And ending it shortens, it prevents them from realizing their full purpose.
Yeah. 100%.
And connection, look for help, seek connection, reach out, because we're all valuable and we're all contributing to the best and highest good moving forward. And we need everyone on board. We want everyone on board.
Yeah. You take a gift away from the world when you choose to walk out on it.
Yes.
And each of us is a unique, beautiful gift, and there's only one of us. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you walk out on this one, just know that you're going to come back and you're going to have to do it again. So just work on this one.
I love it. I love it. And with that, I just want to say thank you, listeners, for tapping in. Roll the outro.
That concludes this episode of Creatives Chat. Thank you for watching. Join us every Thursday at 3:33 p.m. Pacific Daily Time as creative minds get together and chat about who knows what. View more episodes on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks again to our sponsors for making this show possible. Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious human apparel. Shop online at wearehistorically.com.
Hi, I'm Darius Wilrich. I'll teach you everything you need to know about playing jazz piano like a pro with my 12-week online video course and downloadable guidebook, Jazz Piano Pro Essentials. Enroll today at jazzpianopro.com.
Thank you for joining us. Have a happy always.